Okay, you guys are gonna absolutely laugh at me for this one, but I've told you this before and I'm gonna tell you again. I believe I'm one of the best people in the world that recognizes patterns, and I'm able to dictate that through the things that people say and through the actions that they take. And so I remember about 10 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, I used to think all the time, what is the difference between somebody who makes a lot of money and somebody who does not make a lot of money? I started noticing from a very young age, there is a big correlation to the habits that you do versus the results that you actually have. And now look, this is not 100% true, right? This does not mean that every single person that is very detailed tends to have a high income. But there is a high correlation to the fact that people who tend to be more detailed or tend to be more of perfectionists or tend to have more cleanliness, people who have what you would call ADD or ADHD behavior or anything of those sorts, a lot of times those people tend to have the best results when it comes to making a lot of money or having extraordinary results in whatever they are good at. Now look, I have met a ton of people who are very messy, like a lot of people. I have seen people who are very messy and people who are clean freaks on both sides of the spectrums, and I've seen successful people on both sides, and I've seen people unsuccessful on both sides as well. So it's not 100% correlated, but there is a higher probability that you will get better results in what you're trying to create, as opposed to if you were messy or weren't detailed or weren't a perfectionist or were not the person who was always trying to make sure that the book was set up the right way, right? And the reason why I say this is because people that are ultra successful, and again, ultra successful does not mean a lot of money. Ultra successful just simply means that you are one of the best at what you do in the entire world with whatever that is. And it just so happens to be that when you are ultra successful in whatever that one thing is, success and money tend to find each other. For whatever reason, I've been a freaking clean freak my entire life. I really believe that it was my mom who probably distilled this within me. Like, mom was such a clean freak. Like, she was probably ADD or probably still is ADD to the point where she would just want everything clean all the time. And that's kind of how I became. Like, if you guys look at my house, you walk into this entire place, for the most part, everything always almost looks this way. Now, you might look at this right now. I just went for a run and I was at the sauna. My clothes are sweaty, which is why I leave them out here. But for the most part, even my office is pretty clean. You can ignore that stack of papers because I haven't done that in a while, but just pay attention to this, right? Just look at the entire thing. For the most part, my house is pretty damn clean, right? And the reason why I'm showing you guys this is not for any particular reason other than the fact that usually people who are clean freaks, there tends to be a higher correlation to those who are successful in the craft that they make. Now look, again, this is not 100% correlated, but what I'm here to tell you is that out of all the people that I've ever met, I would probably say there's 8 out of 10 people who are really, really good at the thing that they do. They tend to be clean freaks. Why does that matter? I say that it matters because it's a pattern, right? Everything that we do is a pattern. If you pay attention to all the things that you do, you will start recognizing the patterns that you do. And so what do I mean by that? Somebody like myself, I got really, really good at identifying patterns when it came to numbers at a very young age. And I noticed that because I remember when I was like in, I think it might have been 4th or 5th grade, I remember our teacher was teaching us multiplication. And I remember I was always like number 1 or number 2 when it came to multiplication. Like, I was like a beast when it came to numbers. Like, I was gonna go to a magnet school when I was in 5th grade. Like, the teacher that I had was like just so impressed by the way that I calculated numbers. And here's what's crazy. I ended up not going to magnet school. I actually ended up going to one of the worst middle schools in LA County. So I grew up in LA and I went to this elementary school in LA, and this teacher that I had was like infatuated with me for whatever reason. It was this female teacher. I think she just maybe, from what I recall her telling my mom, and from my mom said this, like, she was like, dude, Jaime's like such a sweet guy. He's super caring. Like, he looks out for everybody, and he's so freaking smart. Like, you don't want to put him into a school where it's going to deteriorate everything that he's built, because there's a higher probability that he will have more success if he goes to a different school than opposed to that one. Thinking back to it now, I'm like, it was pretty obvious that me going to one of the worst middle schools in Los Angeles versus going to a magnet school, a magnet school, for those of you who don't know, it's not necessarily a private school. Actually, I think it might be a private school. I'm not really clear, but it's a version of a private school where people who are quote unquote gifted, get invited to go there. I believe you take a test, you get in, you can get a scholarship, and everything gets paid for. So I think it is a private school. You guys should look it up. But I digress. Okay, I looked it up right now because I wanted to verify. But a magnet school is actually not a private school. But a magnet school, you can only go if you actually get invited, and you have to take some type of exam or know somebody to actually get into the school. And these schools specialize in certain subjects, which in other words, they don't let anybody in. So the tuition is covered by taxpayer dollars just like a public school, but it is a lot more specialized because these are kids that have a lot more intention or a lot more detail, or AKA a lot smarter. And if you think about it, most people that are smarter are very detailed. Most people that are smarter are more organized. It doesn't mean, right, it's not 100% correlated that because you are clean that you are smarter, that because you're clean you're gonna make more money. But a lot of the times that ends up being the thing, right? A lot of the time people that are successful, people that end up being really good at something, they specialize this skill of having hyper focus in a specific niche of things. And usually by doing that is you get to be detailed. You get to be very detailed with the information that you know, how you categorize it, how you learn it, how you write it down, how you save it on a computer, at least nowadays. I have never, to this point, let me digress, as I wouldn't say never, but again, I'm gonna say this so many different times. Pattern recognition, like you can tell if you pay attention to the people that you work with. Like I have probably worked with maybe over 100 people very easily when it comes to my business that I'm currently running, whether they were contractors, whether they were employees, whether they were virtual assistants overseas, whether they were partners, whatever the case is. There is a strong correlation to the people that I've had the most success with when it came to making money. There was a very strong indicator of there was people within the organization, within the department, or a specific employee, a specific partner, or specific anything, that when they had a strong attention to detail and they were organized, my income skyrocketed every single time. One of the things that I pay attention to nowadays when I'm working with somebody or I'm gonna hire somebody is not only what is the information that they're telling me, but can they back it up? Is it documented? Where are they pulling this information from? Now, every person that I work with for the most part, in every department, at least the key people, are hyper detailed, analytical. They are very organized, because if they're not, how will they actually know if they're actually doing the job or not? That is also a form of pattern recognition, right? When it comes to marketing, when we're running our marketing numbers, we're looking at the numbers on a week-to-week basis, on a day-to-day basis, on a month-to-month basis, and we're looking at multiple categories. Or those numbers getting better over time? That's a version of pattern recognition. You guys might think like, hey, it's not a big deal whether I'm clean or not. But I'll tell you this, if you're not somebody who is hyper successful in anything specific, maybe you should try being super organized. Maybe you should try being super detailed within the little things that you might not think are little, right? There's people out there like Alex Hormozy who says like, you know what, I don't even do my bed. I get up and I start working. Hey, that's great. The guy's made over $100 million. He'd probably get away with that. And he's probably done that before even ever doing his bed, right? But at the same time, this guy was hyper detailed within the business. He tracked every single little thing. He was an analyzing machine. And so it got him to the point where he became a perfectionist with tracking the right information. He built this skill at a very young age, right? So I want you guys to keep this in mind. He built this skill at a very young age, most likely from his father or his mother, and he applied this in middle school, in elementary school, in high school, and in college, and then in business. Most people never develop that skill at any point in their lives, right? So we end up going through elementary school, middle school, high school, college, maybe try and start a business, and we struggle. We struggle because we don't have that attention to detail. There's also, you guys have probably heard of this, where there's kids who, get nothing but D's and F's in school, and then next thing you know, they become entrepreneurs and make a ton of money. Why? Usually people who get bad grades is because they have not been able to apply the attention to detail in school because they were bored. But it doesn't mean that they couldn't. They probably, again, had a form of ADHD, ADD, or some version of that, but then apply that attention into something that they actually cared about. If you are somebody who you have not seen hyper success in any part of your life, maybe it's because you can't actually focus, right? And so what can you do right now, like right here, right now, to start practicing focus, right? And it's the attention to detail. It's the little things that matter, right? It's like fixing the pillows just because you don't want things to be organized, right? I'm constantly, like when I'm walking around my house, like I'm constantly fidgeting on things, right? I'm constantly looking at things. Like I've had my own employees tell me at times, like, dude, you're focusing on little things that shouldn't matter. The little things do matter. Every single little bit matters, because in the long run, you will miss things if you're not paying attention to all the little things. In the long run, those little things are going to add up to a point where they will make a significant output in the performance that you're trying to create. And so again, if you are not getting amazing results in your life, where can you start paying more attention to the small things? Because I guarantee you that will make an absolute difference in your life.